So Earth was completely covered with forest. Dragonfly were of the size of almost eagle, and Earth was for the first time in Carboniferous period completely covered with forest. So this was Carboniferous period. That is around 360 million years ago, right? I mean back. So during this period, when the oxygen level they rose to around 35%, 35%. Earth was for the first time completely covered with, and this such high oxygen level were primarily because of the extensive forest cover that were there on planet Earth, right? So during this period, and it was in direct response because insects they generally breathe through skin. Though there are other contradicting theories as well, right? But primarily it is because of the change in the oxygen level, that is you had corresponding change to the size of insects. Insects they were huge actually during this time, right? Now what actually set the upper threshold of say oxygen? Oxygen today is around 21%. So what it is? Now we know for sure that oxygen, any environment which is rich in oxygen, what does it do? It supports fire. Fire. So slightest of lightning, slightest all those trees, all those certain species which catch fire very well actually, for that matter, even if you go in hospitals or those environments where you have oxygen supply pipelines all across. So you have big notification there bang on that do not smoke, because if you smoke you are going to blow out everything. So it was fire, rampant fire, and moment it is fire, what happens? Oxygen again converts into CO2, right? So what happened? The upper limit of the oxygen that was set around 21%, with nitrogen being an inert gas, or you can say working as diluent, right, which prevents this atmosphere from exploding, right? So this is how you have permanent gases. Now other than this permanent gases, now we have variable gases. Variable meaning which change in season from season to season, which have a cyclic behavior, right? So variable gases, you have variable gases. The most important is you have water vapors, then CO2, CH4, O3, right? Now water vapor as such is most important greenhouse gas, most important. Anyway, have you ever thought of that despite almost like 99% of atmosphere being composed of nitrogen and oxygen, right, they simply do not have any bearing whatsoever when it comes to temperature control. It is these gases which work as greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases. The reason being, what is the reason? The reason is their molecular structure. Listen to it very carefully. Once you have this earth, you have this radiation coming, short wave radiation coming from sun, right? It strikes and then it gets converted into long wave radiation, right? Now this long wave radiation as such is trapped by these gases, meaning you need to have a minimum molecular structure of at least 3 atoms. What happens typically with say when you have water vapor or when you have carbon dioxide, what happens typically? The molecular structure is like this, and they have this bonding. Bonds are something you can think of, they are like guitar strings. They have certain frequency, right? So when their frequency of these greenhouse gases, that is minimum 3 atoms or more, when it matches the energy of these photons, what happens? They are like, you can think of guitar string, as I said. They have certain frequency, they keep vibrating. What happened? These photons are trapped by these by these molecules, right? You have hydrogen, you have, so you have this hydrogen, then you have two oxygen, and then it is what happens, this energy, the energy of this photon, that is the infrared light that is passing through, it is transmitted to this bond, and then which is later on transmitted to the atom, and in turn the atom starts vibrating more vigorously, right? More vigorously. The same is the case with CO2. But for that matter, this water vapor is far more important gas as compared to greenhouse gas I am speaking of. But then why do we talk about CO2? If water vapor happens to be a more important gas, then why at all we are concerned about so much about CO2? The reason is when we scientists in Antarctica, what they do, they dig in huge ice cubes, right? They drill in and they take out huge columns of ice. Typically when it snows, what happens, certain amount of atmosphere, that is gases, they get trapped into these ice, and then they are buried over thousands and lakhs of and millions of years, right? Now if you were to take out these ice columns, then what you can very well figure out what was the atmosphere that existed in, or what was the composition of atmosphere which existed in past, right? So through those evidence, what we have realized, the conclusion is that during warmer period, CO2 levels were roughly around 0.028%, right? 0.028%. And during Ice Age, it is roughly around 0.018%. That is, this is what is the variation, right? Which, and in turn, temperature variation was somewhere around 4 degrees centigrade to 7 degrees centigrade. Are you getting it? During the warmer period, the amount of carbon dioxide from 2.8 to the Ice Age, it has varied around from 0.028% to 0.018%, right? So this is a clear indication, and the reason is water vapor is primarily confined to the lower part of the atmosphere, that is say 6 kilometers, right? Beyond it, generally you have carbon dioxide, and as the radiation it passes through, right, it is absorbed in those higher regions of the atmosphere where you have CO2. So if you were to add more CO2, absorption is going to be far more. Second most important thing is amount of water vapor. It reduces both in latitude, and altitude. So you can say it varies both in latitude and altitude, right? Now, when it comes to CO2, we are doing here a comparative study. So we are concerned now speaking of CO2, right? So post, you can say 1880, post 1880. I hope this the part that I have spoken is clear regarding. In case if you have any query, you can actually ask in your query at, I have a Telegram channel. At IAS_geography. _free, right? Whatever queries are, you put it on this Telegram channel IAS_geography_free. Generally, whatever schedule I have, within 7 days, I promise you a reply, right? Me or my team, any one of us will reply, right? This is my Telegram channel. Regarding it, any confusion that you have, you can ask. So that part was clear, I think. I guess regarding that 3 atom structure, right? Now, food for thought. Or shall I ask you a question? The question is, what is the reason for, say, sea level rise? Supposing in prelims you have the reason for sea level rise, and the options are: one, melting of polar ice caps, that is Arctic. Maybe melting of, second option is melting of Antarctic. Third is temperature rise. Fourth is none of them. What would be your answer? The answer will be 3, that is temperature rise. So whatever sea level rise that has happened, whatever sea level rise when we speak of, that has happened, that is, if this is the chunk that has increased, it is primarily on count of water taking more heat, water having absorbed heat from the atmosphere, and in turn water, as I said, this structure, so in turn vibrating more vigorously, right? So the space, right, that is the molecular space in between the atoms, that is not in between the atom, that is between molecules and molecules, between atoms and atoms, right, between H2O molecule and then again you will have an H2O molecule. So it has increased. It is this vibration which has created that sea level rise, right? That is expansion of water. As of now, it is not believed that whatever temperature rise is on, or sorry, sea level rise is on count of any ice or polar ice melting or any kind of glaciatic melting, right? Be very clear about it. Now we come on to CO2. Now CO2 for it's like almost since 1880s, you can say, it is almost like, because of this increase, almost like there is a 1 degree temperature increase, and it is again believed to be on count of the increase in CO2 level, right? Actually, there is a guy, there is a person by name Charles David Keene, and on his Keeling, right? And it is on his name. Actually, this guy, what happened? He drew a curve. He started jotting down. He lived actually somewhere in Hawaii, middle of Pacific. And what he did a very smart thing. That is, he started taking down the level of the amount of carbon dioxide in atmosphere, right? So 1960 actually he started, and it is in middle of Hawaii, so you can pretty well figure out that the atmosphere is pretty clean. No such pollution, kind of pollution generally you have in continental space, that is not there, right? So what he did, he started jotting down, right? On one end he took this year wise, right? All these years he took time, that is, and on the other side what he took was ppm level of, that is ppm level of CO2, right? So that is part per million. So 1960 it was somewhere around 310, right? And today 2019 it is somewhere around 410, and the graph, it came out something like this, right? It came out something like this. Now what does this highs and lows this show? If we were to blow it up, what does this show? This show there is a annual rise and fall of carbon dioxide. Why? Because carbon dioxide is a variable gas. What do you mean by variable gas? That is, it has seasonal tendency. That is, if it is winter, what happens? There is less of sun, less of photosynthesis, so more of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And this typically happens, I mean, ideally what should have happened is, Earth is a sphere, so obviously equal amount of radiation would have this thing in south as well. It would have been compensated in south, but what, in southern hemisphere there is less of land, so corresponding what happens, the level of carbon dioxide it increases, and as it increases, what happens, by the time it is summer, it again comes down, because as it approaches towards summer, you have rain, you have more of or you can say spring or rainy season. What happens, you have more of moisture in the atmosphere. Moisture in the atmosphere simply means that leaves, what they do, they generally breathe through stomata, that is the small openings on the leaf. So what happens typically in dry season, that is they have a choice, means they have a choice to make, to open their stomata. If they were to open the stomata only, then they will take carbon dioxide. So they have a choice to make, that is to lose moisture and take CO2, or to keep it closed, right? So when it comes to say rainy season or spring, something like this, what happens? They comfortably open and the amount of carbon intake it increases, and which results in more of photosynthesis. So you have your surroundings lush green, right? So this is about CO2. This is Keeling curve. This is Keeling. This is Keeling curve, right? He died, and later on it was actually carried on by his son. Keeling curve. So now coming on to third gas, that is methane. Now methane is almost like 21 times. Methane is 21 times more deadly than you can understand as CO2. It has 21 times more capacity to hold on to that radiation that I spoke of as compared to CO2. Now, what are the sources for CH4? Right? Methane, if I were to say, so the most abundant and most important source is the rice field. Actually, methane started rising in the atmosphere post this cultivation of rice. What happens when rice field, they are submerged in water? They are submerged in water, then the oxygen supply to the bacteria below, it is cut off, right? Now once it is cut off, then what? These bacteria, they start reducing, that is they start forming CH4, right? Had there been no water, they would have comfortably formed CO2, but what they would have oxidized carbon into CO2. But what happens, rather because of the absence, because the supply is cut off, so they produce CH4, right? So for past almost like 5,000 years, this CH4 level, it started increasing, but of late it has plateaued out. The reason it is said is that we have almost like reached or plateaued in terms of the area that is covered, right? Other than this, also now there are certain advanced water management techniques that have been put in place when it comes to paddy cultivation, that is the fields actually they are drained off, right? So one is rice cultivation, then you have livestock, that is cattle and all this. They put in lot of methane into atmosphere. Then you have termites, right? Now as compared to CO2, CH4 is chemically reactive. As compared to CH4, you can take CO2 almost inert, right? It will not react easily. But CH4, given an opportunity, it again converts into CO2 plus H2, right? It again converts into, now given an opportunity, what happens? CH4, it again converts into CH4, it again converts into CO2 plus H2, right? So it is again put back into the system, right? So this is about variable gases. Variable gases are variable because they vary in time and space, and it is for this reason CO2 is said to be the thermostat. CO2 is said to be the thermostat of the earth. That is a gas which is as minuscule as you can think of, and still it exercises such big control, right? Now coming on to the last thing, that is aerosols. Now aerosols, what do they do? As I discussed, dust particle, salt particle, right? So one most important thing is they act as hygroscopic nuclei. Right, they act as hygroscopic nuclei. Now what do I mean by hygroscopic nuclei? What happens? when water, it has a tendency, right? This supposing if it is a salt particle, what happens? Even if the amount of water vapor is not 100%, that is close to 100%, even far less than 100%, what? Still water, generally it is, you need to have more this thing in atmosphere, right? So even if it is less than 100%, what happens? Water vapor, this water vapor in the atmosphere, what? They tend to crystallize. They tend to get around with this on these nuclei, right? There are two things. One is hygroscopic nuclei. Second is hydrophobic nuclei. Hydrophobic nuclei are oil and certain Teflon, right? So these things, they repel water. Oil, it never allows water, even if it is 100% humidity, it will not allow water to coalesce or condense around it. But in case of hygroscopic nuclei, even if this water vapor is far below 100%, that is saturation, still what happens? It allows it to form water droplet, right? One is this. Second most important thing what aerosol does is this scattering. Had it not been in atmosphere, what? Right now what happens if you were to look at this room, what? Light is coming from all ends, right? Even if I were to put off the lights, light generally when you are sitting in a room, what? It comes from all ends. Why does it happen? It happens because of scattering of light. What happens? Suppose when a light ray, that is incidence light ray, when it strikes onto dust particles or say water vapor, what happened? It gets scattered. It gets scattered all around, and this leads to scattering. Scattering in turn leads to diffusion. That is, you feel light is coming from all around. That is, it has almost an envelope effect wherever you are seeing. I mean, wherever you are on Earth, right? And actually, it is because of scattering you have that morning you see that red sun, or evening that orange, right? So it is because of this phenomena of scattering you have this diffusion, that is light coming from all around. Third most important thing about aerosol is that generally the concentration, what happened? It's maximum near the surface, and as you move up, it keeps on decreasing continuously, right? Regarding aerosol, it is because clouds, they get formed at a much higher level, right? So what happens when you have these convective currents or the upthrust of the wind, then they tend to carry it much further in the atmosphere, right? So this is it about composition of atmosphere. And any query, I have already given you my this telegram, right? You can ask and I'll reply in 7 days time. Now the next topic that we will do is structure of atmosphere. Structure of atmosphere, right? We'll do in 5 minutes.